I've had a few people give me a hard time, actually. One old gentleman came in and said, is there caffeine in this coffee beer? And to my surprise, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory, but I was like, yeah, we put a lot of coffee in it. And he was just like, I couldn't sleep all night. Like, he was up all night. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. Today we are in the Bowmanville region of Ontario, and joining us are the co-owners of Manantler. We have Matt, and also co-owner and head brewer Chris.
How's it going?
Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us today. I know, Matt, you're a little busier than the rest of us nowadays, so really appreciate any time any of you guys take time to speak with us. So
yeah, appreciate you coming in.
Awesome. So you brought me out some delicious looking beers here to try today. What's number one?
Number one is our Roberta Blondar. So a beer we've been doing right from the beginning. Just a really light, easy blonde ale. Has a little bit of a bitterness on the back end, just a tiny bit, and kind of a beer that we've been perfecting over the last 5 years. It's a homage to Roberta Blondar, the first Canadian female astronaut.
As you do, a toast.
Yeah, cheers.
Chris, you're also drinking?
Oh.
Toast. Ooh, smooth. A little bit of maltiness. Oh, super summer beer. Hands down.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's a fantastic start. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So guys, what's the beer story? The Manantler brand. How did it come to be?
Well, it started when I got a Mr. Beer kit off Amazon and brewed a tiny batch of horrible beer on my stovetop. Progressed into some backyard brewing. And eventually, after bringing kegs and beers out to parties and sharing them with friends, me and a few guys at the time decided to open up our own shop, and we basically bootstrapped the whole thing for very little cash, and opened up our original location, which was across town. So it was just a tiny little spot in a basement, and with a brew system that we built from scratch and made out of wine fermenters, and basically just pieced everything together for as little money as we possibly could at the time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the origin story.
That's the origin story, yeah. That's how we got the doors open.
And then being brothers and becoming business partners, how did that come to be?
Yeah, well, it was about a year, maybe a little bit less after we opened, that we needed some management. My brother had some management experience, and he was living, I think, in Hamilton at the time.
Yeah, I had just finished college, and I was working in my field, and when the opportunity came up to work at the brewery, I just I didn't want to pass it up. I think at the time we were I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, 85th or 87th brewery in Ontario when we opened. Now we're sitting at 360, so we were early.
Yeah.
So kind of that origin story, what were outside of the Mr. Beer kit, I'm sure.
Yep.
Popped bottles, explosions, over fermenting, stuff like that.
Yeah, I gave up on bottling pretty much after the first run because I was like, this is just too much work for too little reward. But when I bought my first kit, I got a bunch of, kit from Kijiji from a guy in Kingston. I drove to Kingston and, got like 10, 15 corny kegs and basically everything I could ever need plus for home brewing. So we had just like all those little corny pop kegs, so we used to fill those, and I gave up on bottling pretty quickly when it came to home brewing. It was annoying to me.
We've interviewed homebrewers, we've spoken with homebrewers before, and just everybody's adventure is, you start off at A, but then this guy's starting at Z, and then you guys are somewhere. So it's wild, like the innovation of the home brewing community that we've seen from the Montrealers. I'm sure there's a homebrew club here in Ontario as well, where you guys should shoot things off each other.
Yeah, we were in the Durham Homebrewers Club, and a bunch of the guys from Five Paddles were in the Durham Homebrewers Club too. So that's how we actually met the guys from Five Paddles, including Spencer, who was running Brewer's Pantry at the time, selling homebrew equipment. So yeah, it was kind of wild too. Neither of us had really opened the breweries yet. They still had, they were still, I think, a couple months away from opening theirs when we met them, and it definitely helped with the inspiration to open our own for sure.
Yeah, no, like I said, you guys have been busy, and I've only, like, for us from Montreal, we only really heard about the Durham beer region back in February 2020 before the world shut down. And it's like, oh, we got to check these guys out. Nope, we're not traveling anytime soon.
Yeah.
And then the opportunities opened us to travel again, so we wanted to get as many Durham done this time as we could. So.
Yeah, we've got a really good scene in Durham for sure. It's been growing to the last 4 years. Used to be like 3 of us. Now we're at 11.
Yeah.
And some really good quality beer too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've been a little at craft beer drinkers. We've been very spoiled this past week in this area, so it's been pretty fantastic.
Nice.
Awesome. Any kind of either the original place or here kind of problems creating it, moving in, things like that?
There's always problems. Always problems. Every week something else breaks, and you know, all the little stuff. But I've heard horror stories from some people. I think we're pretty lucky in this area. Like, our municipality really supports craft breweries. They helped us out, you know, even with the move, and they've always been big supporters. So a lot of the things that I've heard of a lot of breweries having trouble with, we didn't have those issues.
Permits and you know, just building the place out and having like the help from the township. We've had a lot of support. Whereas I've heard in Oshawa would be, I've heard the opposite. I've heard that they just, you know, they're like, what's a brewery? And they're asking, you know, all kinds of little roadblocks that they've had to, just barriers to entry, I guess, where Bowmanville's kind of opened up their arms for us, so.
Yeah, it's so confusing. Like, I mentioned it countless times on the show, but where I grew up was a dry county or a dry borough for 100 years, and then we finally got a craft brewery. And all of a sudden, the city's like, "Holy shit, we can make money!" So
Dry county. Wow.
Yeah, 100 years. So when I was a young adult, go to a pool hall, drink a beer. Here's a hot dog. What? Yeah, no, you need to. What? And being an 18-year-old in Quebec, you don't know better. So you're just used to downtown chugging pitchers, and then all of a sudden it's like, I want to play pool, here's a beer and a hot dog. This is stupid.
The greatest thing about living beside the invisible border between Ontario and Quebec is everybody from our town would just drive right into Quebec just because the drinking age was a year younger on a 40-minute drive, whatever.
18,
Well, it's not just you guys, it's also the American kids traveling from like Plattsburgh.
For sure.
Oh, true. I didn't even think of that.
3 years. So they're probably having a heyday over there for a few years. For us, it's just a year.
Exactly.
A year of debauchery.
And then in Quebec, depending where you go, it's 16, but you know, that's...
Yeah, I was just going to say, unless you had a fake ID, I was doing it for a couple of years.
As was I.
Who do you think you used?
But as responsible beer drinkers now, we do not support that in any way.
No.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Manantler's pretty original name. Where'd you guys come up with that?
I mean, I wish it was a better story, but we had some, there's some friends that did a one-time charity show. They're musicians. And they came up with the name Mantler. And honestly, it was years before we even opened the brewery, but it just kind of stuck with me, and we just, you know, kept mulling it over in my head, and it just like seemed oddly Canadian sounding and unique, and there's just kind of nothing like it, so just went with it. It was, you know, get us to the top of the Google search results.
Yeah. You can spell it wrong, and it's still the first thing that pops up on Google because there's no other company with an even similar name.
I mean, until today, I was mispronouncing it on a regular basis.
A lot of people do. A lot of
said
people
it was like just Mantler, oh, okay, that's it. But no, it's Manantlers.
Some people call it the Manantler for whatever reason.
For sure.
There's been a few different names.
There's
great.
an interesting description on Urban Dictionary too that we found after we opened it. So
Depending how PC
Feel free to search that out yourself.
Depending how PG that is, we'll have to mind that out at in post.
Pops up on the screen.
Yeah. So what's beer number 2 I'm having here?
Beer number 2 is the Fifth Wheel Lager. So this is actually our first lager we've ever done. When we moved to this new location, we've upgraded some brewing equipment, upgraded some tanks. So now we kind of have the ability to do a traditional lager. And then we named it the Fifth Wheel Truck Stop Lager just because Chris and I's dad used to own the Fifth Wheel here in Bowmanville. And then growing up in Cornwall a long time ago, he owned the one in Cornwall. So the reason Chris and I are in Bowmanville is because our dad moved here to buy that Fifth Wheel. So without the Fifth Wheel, we probably never would have ended up in Bowmanville. So this is a little homage to the Fifth Wheel.
Awesome.
Yeah, cheers.
A toast.
Yeah. It's definitely
That's a lager.
interesting. I mean, since we moved from the old spot, we've got a lot more control, more tanks, so.
And so you guys don't own, I'm assuming you rent. So
Yeah.
the landlord was like super, come on in,
Yeah,
set it all up,
yeah.
just
He,
don't burn the place down. That's
yeah,
pretty much it.
Basically, yeah.
we'd
Or
basically,
He honestly has been completely open to whatever we wanted to. He's like, you know what? Do whatever you want to the place. Like, I trust you. So
we're
right.
we're basically looking at a new location for almost 2 years. We knew that we had to get out of the basement, but what we didn't want to do was move out of the basement into a temporary spot to then find the perfect spot. So we came close to a few other locations, but nothing in Bowmanville, and it was a big thing for us to want to stay in Bowmanville. So it ended up taking 2 years, but once we found this spot, it kind of checked off all those boxes we were really looking for. As you can see, we're sitting in an AC'd taproom, which
Yes.
is a big change for us. Being in the basement of a 100-year-old factory building with no AC, it was quite humid and hot, especially on brew days.
Yeah.
And then the patio, we wanted the patio, we wanted the bay door. We've just partnered up with somebody for a food truck, so bringing in the full-time food was big for us. But we basically signed a 10-year lease here, so
Nice.
yeah, we're locked in.
We're here for a bit.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you guys, like you said, you're on the list of you just even misspell your name and you're there as a Google search
sure,
SEO.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great. And I saw like a barbecue joint out front too. So I'm sure
Yep.
you guys have some sort of partnership where
Yeah.
Yeah.
raise
Southern
the
John Smokehouse. Yeah, they actually started our wood-fired pizza oven truck too. So, and honestly, John's been friends with us for a while. He put us on the original location we were looking at was in Curtis, it's a tiny little spot in the basement again. But it was a tiny little spot that we were originally going to move in. We didn't end up doing that, but he was the one who put us onto that spot, and then he's the one who put us onto this spot again, gave us a shout and said, "Hey, I think this would be a really good space for you guys." So
thankfully, you guys in Ontario got to deliver beer. Did you find that helped? Like all of a sudden, just I know not having the tap room money, but being able to shift to bringing happiness to people's homes.
Yeah, it really opened up new revenue streams for us because pre-pandemic, we weren't selling beer on our website, we weren't doing home deliveries, we weren't doing curbside pickup. So when it hit and we had to switch to those avenues, I mean, it really forced us to get that website built and to start selling beer off the website. The home deliveries was great. I mean, it was a lot of, at the beginning especially, it was a lot of our regulars that were just missing coming to the brewery, that were just ordering a case of beer for home delivery. So
it's something you wouldn't have thought of before the pandemic started, that free delivery in your area is the way to go. But when it comes to craft beer, I mean, people pay a decent premium for craft beer, and I think it's one of those products that can easily be delivered, for free or very cheap in your local area at least, and still have it be worth it to the brewery. And I don't think that is something that most breweries would have realized when the pandemic started. It's like, hey, we need to get this stuff out there. Do we really need to be charging for every time we stop at someone's house and deliver a 12-pack. You know what I mean? So it's you start to look at the numbers and you're like, you know what? It's a good thing that we can drive around and just get our Durham deliveries out at least and supply the people of Durham, and then we have our Ontario-wide shipping for like $10 anyway. So
It's fantastic.
yeah.
There was a big thing though with craft breweries being deemed essential in Ontario throughout the pandemic. So I mean, they couldn't close breweries without closing the LCBO or the beer store. So if they call alcohol an essential service, like all craft breweries were able to stay open. So your brick and mortar bottle shop could still be open where people could come in. But definitely a big change.
We all could have
what
been
we were
pretty
used to.
screwed if that hadn't been the case.
Yeah, and craft beer drinkers like ourselves would be really sad as well, because
Curbside delivery or curbside pickup,
that's what we have to do in Quebec.
Oh, is it really?
So one benefit we do have in Quebec, which I'm starting to see in Ontario as well, you guys are starting to shift, is actual kind of bottle shops where I could grab you guys, Chronicle, Little Beast, Five Paddles, Town at just one store instead.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough that those stores would actually deliver.
Right.
So I would wake up and, we're getting our delivery at this time, so I'd wait for their stock to update, and it's just one.
Yeah.
Oh, they're selling chips and sausages too. Okay, yeah. And then here's your delivery window. Make sure you're home. I'm like, I'm working from home.
Yeah.
I'm doing 12-hour days when I used to do 8 and be stuck in traffic for 3. Now I'm just doing 12-hour days, and work's like, calm down.
Yeah.
Okay, so Friday, crack open a beer while I'm working and just go to town. So.
There's a lot of delivery companies in Ontario that just started throwing the beer at the door and not even checking IDs because of the pandemic. If you were a 17, 18-year-old with a little bit of craft beer knowledge, you could have easily been.
Yeah. Stuff happens. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys have some pretty geek chic, I'd like to say, names for your beers. Dark Prince, Never Sleep Again is a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I saw that. I'm like, yes. Names and labels. How did you guys come up with that kind of stuff?
Well,
It's kind of
it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Mixed bag for sure. The Never Sleep Again is actually, can't take credit for that one. That is a brand of the coffee roasters that we partner with for that beer. So that's their brand with the eye and the hooks keeping the eye open and stuff. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's a collab between us and them. So us and Deadly Grounds.
So we just rebranded that whole beer. So it was called our Buzz Light beer. And then the Never Sleep Again is obviously what the coffee's called also. So that one just got a full rebrand. We just switched everything to cans. So this is all these cans are brand new for us.
Yeah. The Roberta Blondar was one of our very first, and we actually were going to do sort of a Canadian Hero series, but we ended up just keeping that one as our staple blonde ale. So it didn't end up being part of a series at all. It's been our biggest seller since we've opened. The Fifth Wheel Lager, Matt already told you the story about. Our dad on the fifth wheel. The Seismic Narwhal, that was kind of just a weird walking around the parking lot one day thinking about narwhals. We read an article about how the narwhals were being impeded by seismic activity from scientists that were actually studying them. But, it just, things just kind of jump out at you, and then once it hits, you're just kind of like, let's go with that. The Sacre Bleu, it's a Belgian saison, and the saison yeast is from a French-speaking part of Belgium. So we were obviously from an hour from Montreal. We did French immersion our entire lives. So it was kind of like, you know what? I think that would be a good name for that. Yeah. And we used a local artist for that, and she had this mime lady that we were kind of trying to think, what are we going to use this art for? We have no real place to put it in. It's not something that kind of, so we're like, you know what? We're doing a saison. We might as well use her on our French beer. So the Hip Hop Anonymous was just kind of I love the movie Big Daddy, and like I'm walking around one day thinking, he pup anonymous, you give him all the easy ones. And it just kind of, I was like, oh, there's hop in that.
Yeah.
So we made it our hazy IPA. The Dark Prince, I don't even remember exactly how that came about. It was the first beer we ever brewed commercially.
It's actually our next beer here.
That's
so
the next beer coming up.
we can
So
cheers on that.
Yeah.
This is the Dark Prince.
A toast.
So yeah, like Chris just said, first beer we brewed ever at the original
the
location.
original location, yeah.
So we have been brewing this beer technically the longest.
Yeah.
And then this guy won silver at the Ontario Brewing Awards for the
Nice.
Black IPA category.
First batch, actually. It was the
awesome.
original first batch ever brewed on our new brew system made out of wine fermenters. And yeah, somehow it won a silver at the Ontario Brewing Awards, and we were just like, what?
Wait a minute.
We're getting recognition from our peers? Okay.
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah. I
Same.
mean, Never Sleep Again sold me right away as soon as I saw it. I'm like, oh, Freddy, because I'm a horror hound. So
Horror
it's
found?
great.
Dan?
Deadly Grounds has some great artwork, great branding.
Yeah.
They're really local to us in Curtis.
Yeah.
The coffee itself is amazing. So
Yeah.
we've tried a few different of their blends in the Never Sleep Again, but for whatever reason it's a double caffeinated coffee.
It's a dark roast.
So it
Comes out
really
really
just gives the beer everything we want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of that's what we always like to speak on is collabs. Now, obviously, you've done the Coffee Blonde with Deadly Grounds. Any other stores, brewers that you've already worked with locally and collab?
Yeah,
collab
there's so the Snug in Newcastle is a really, really traditional Irish pub. And he approached us kind of, I think, in the first few months of the pandemic. And when he was told he was allowed to start selling beer to go with takeout, he wanted to create his own milk stout. So we sat down, created a recipe. He got the label done, branded it. Chris and I went there to drop off like the first batch, and he had glassware made, masks, T-shirts, like marketing.
Signs.
He's a marketing genius.
Yeah.
But he actually ended up buying 4 or 5 full batches throughout the pandemic. He started out selling Guinness. So we don't actually sell it here. He buys the whole batch and sells it there. But that's a newer one for us that we've been doing.
He asked me to make Guinness, is what he asked. He said, I want you to make me Guinness. And we're like, I'll make you Guinness-ish
Adjacent.
that they make in Ireland. You know, like it's like it's an actual stout, like it's got some like, you know, thick mouthfeel and some of those dark roasty qualities you're not going to get from the Guinness, in my opinion, as much from the Guinness that you're going to drink here. And he was like, whatever. And then we made it for him, and we had him try it. I don't think he'd had a beer in a couple of years, and he said, "This is fucking delicious." So he was
That's
happy
great.
with it.
When you get the Irish stamp of approval on your
Yeah.
Guinness-ish beer,
Right?
that's always helpful.
Right?
So
Yeah, exactly.
awesome to hear.
Yeah, we've over the years we've done a lot of collabs.
We've done some with Five Paddles. We
Paddles.
did Minotaur and a Canoe on Fire with Five Paddles and Old Flame.
Yeah. We did a couple with Brew Wizards. It's a craft beer board game cafe in Oshawa.
Yep.
Done a couple with them. We've done a collab with Town. We've done a few with Second Wedge.
What was the Love is Brutiful?
Yeah, we're still doing that one. Yeah,
Still doing that
yeah,
one. We haven't done it. Obviously, it's been pandemic times, and
Yeah.
people aren't getting together as much. But
Yeah, we're not getting together and brewing it, but they're still brewing the beer as a collab with
Yeah,
us, and they donate proceeds to PFLAG Durham Region,
Yep.
which is great. And then
we do our
have
Causeworthy
our
Cream Ale.
Causeworthy Cream Ale. Originally, it was supposed to be a charity beer that we were going to switch the charity every couple months. But the first charity we used was PFLAG Durham Region, and I was talking to Jake, who runs PFLAG, and he was basically telling me that in June donations are great. You know, everybody's donating. It's Pride Month. It's the other 11 months of the year.
Yeah.
He basically said everything just dies out for them. So at that point, we just decided to keep the cream ale full time, and then we donate 50 cents per per pour to PFLAG.
Yeah, it's nice that there's more. I'm seeing there's more and more like charity beers or charity events that involve craft beer.
Yeah.
That the big boys don't have to be the only ones anymore.
Like the Black is Beautiful is the worldwide collab.
Yeah.
We're just
The All Together as well.
all together,
we did
and
both
we're
of
about to
those,
do
yeah.
we're about to do the Brave Noise collab. So yeah, there's a lot of worldwide collabs too, which is kind of a cool concept. Getting a bunch of breweries that no one knows each other and just brewing the same recipe. It's kind of cool. Like
All having a common goal.
yeah, and I think if just from the craft beer standpoint, it's like if you can get your hands on a few of them and try the differences between a recipe from different breweries, that's kind of an interesting concept as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. For myself, the most frustrating part about Because Beautiful is it would sell out before I had a chance to buy it.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I do want to drink the beer and I want to support a great cause, but I can't because now people buy it before me.
Yeah.
It's great to see the businesses thriving, local businesses thriving during all this crap we're dealing with. So.
Or at very least surviving.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's I feel like that's been more of the case through the pandemic is just like let's
survive.
Let's figure out how to keep our bottom line low and just make it through this thing so that we can continue making beer, doing what we love.
Yeah.
Especially doing a full location move in the middle of a pandemic.
That was
which
strategic.
Looking back on it now, I'm like, I question how we would have done it had we been running at full
speed?
steam,
Yeah.
100%. Like
Would've been
it
hard.
would have been a whole other animal.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a blessing in disguise, not COVID obviously, but just like the ability to like have a little bit of a slowdown so that we can actually focus on opening a new location.
For sure.
It's like and we kind of took full advantage of everything that we could, like as far as government subsidies and whatever they were offering. It's like, okay, we're going to take full advantage of this and get ourselves a new location because we were in the basement, we were hot all summer long. We were making a tiny amount of beer. I mean, relatively now we're making 3 times more per batch. So it was a necessary thing for us to get out of that place. And we took that as a bit of an opportunity to spend some more time figuring that out.
Well, I'm sure some of the benefits are like, oh, now we can set up like the bar table we want. I see you have your pallet chairs in the back, like some nice wooden tables. I'm sure if you guys were like being crunched and you guys were constantly packed, that wouldn't exist, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, those were the only tables at our own old spot, basically. I mean, we had some smaller tables too, but
I mean, we did pack the old location.
The old location
pre-COVID.
was-
I mean, we started doing a trivia league, and we did a lot of live music, a lot of different comedy nights and different events. So we definitely packed it. Like thinking about how packed it was now, and after COVID happened, you're like, holy crap.
yeah.
But
I mean, we were at the Ottawa Beer Festival when like this pandemic is going to start. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we could have easily got it there. I was in New York City in November 2019. I could have caught it there. It's just, like, I haven't. So, and having, thankfully I get to work from home. I know you guys don't, but you didn't have customers coming in, so you like, oh, we get this shit beer to.
What do you mean? You're 4 hours from home right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, awesome. So dream collabs you haven't done yet that you'd like to, either local, provincial, Canada, North America wide, even worldwide if you could, like that couple of dream breweries that you could never imagine they'd collab. You get in touch with them one day. Hey, come on down to our monastery in Belgium and brew a saison,
I mean, I'd love to do a collab with Stone.
Two in a row?
Yeah?
You guys...
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
I mean, you
that's
said
two stones.
just a dream collab,
Yeah.
but that will never probably happen. Yes, I would love to do a collab with Stone.
I think Godspeed would be a really cool one.
We're staying in Ontario now.
Well, no, we can go anywhere.
The Alchemist?
Alchemist, yeah.
Now we're just dreaming.
He said,
Like I said,
heard the
dream
word
collabs.
dream.
So,
The word dream was in his
I
question.
met. I went to Costa Rica a year before the pandemic hit, and there was a guy there from Vermont had opened up his own brewery, and he was doing a Heady Topper clone.
nice.
And then
basically he had just sold it to a new guy who wanted to open his brewery up in St. Louis. And he said they found a location, and then they looked online, and there was 87 breweries within like a 5-mile walk from them. What? So he decided to liquidate all his assets. He moved to Costa Rica. As long as you have $200,000 and you're going to open up a business in Costa Rica, they'll give you full citizenship. So he opened up his own brewery in Costa Rica. I think that would be a pretty cool collab, like one day to go back and do a collab with him. But
I think he's smuggling hops in on planes, like strapping them to his bodies with duct tape, trying to get across
he's
the
not
border.
smuggling them, but he literally, to do the Heady Topper clone, he had to bring the yeast and the hops over in a luggage from the States himself to do the Heady Topper clone.
You see him at customs, they're like,
Yeah.
he's all nervous. What, are you trying to import cocaine? No.
What are these green pellets?
These green plants that aren't native to the street.
It's like, smell them. They're part of the weed family.
Yeah. I know as somebody who hasn't been able to travel to the Alchemist for 2 years, or almost 2 years now, and as a Montrealer,
And
we're
you're
so much
close,
closer than
right?
you guys.
Like how far away are you from?
2 hours and change.
That's crazy.
And that's on a good day at the border, though.
Yeah,
like I've been on an hour lineup at the border, and then showed up at Hill Farmstead, and then waited an hour for beer, and then waited another hour to buy beer to bring back to Montreal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I met people from Philadelphia, New Jersey, like all over the U.S. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, Hill Farmstead is the place now. Nowadays they have some bad rep going on, but their beer when I had it was fantastic. So,
Yeah, oh man, Hill Farmstead. Cannot question the quality of the beer, that's for sure. The actually we went there on kind of like a brewer's business, fun trip to Vermont one year, and we went to Zero Gravity and had their wood-fired pizza.
Yes.
And honestly, that's been like the main inspiration for that thing out there, because it's just like,
Yeah.
what better than to go to a brewery, you're trying like some awesome beers, you have some like cool
Awesome pizza.
artisan wood-fired pizza,
Yeah.
like that to me is just the dream, so.
Awesome. What's beer number 4 we're doing here?
So this is the Never Sleep Again. This is the
I got as well.
coffee-infused ale.
Since it is technically morning.
Toast.
So most times you say coffee beer, people immediately think a dark beer. We went the complete opposite. We went super light beer, and then 20 pounds of coffee beans, steeped for
Double caffeinated.
48 to 72 hours, and then we remove the coffee out of it, and this is what we're left with.
Yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well.
Oh, it's dangerous because you're like, oh, it's coffee beer, so I'm going to get energy. You're like, no.
There's actually a bit of caffeine too.
I've had a few people give me a hard time, actually. One old gentleman came in and said, is there caffeine in this coffee beer? And to my surprise, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory, but I was like, yeah, we put a lot of coffee in it. And he was just like, I couldn't sleep all night. Like, he was up all night. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one for first thing in the morning, or
cottage first morning beer.
If you're up at night and you're getting a little tired, you slam one of these back. But it's honestly, you will sleep eventually.
Yeah. Now, this is something where I would start a beer festival, because usually when I go to beer festivals, it's, they concentrate on people showing up on the weekend, whereas I'll take beercations, which we'll talk about shortly, but some of my beercations are actually doing beer festivals, and I'll start with coffee beers to keep me going throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I'll go the Wednesday when it's not as busy until it's happy hour, and then people show up from all their offices, which I don't know what beer festivals are going to look like in the next year or two, but I'm hoping, in Quebec, we're going to have vaccine passports coming.
Right.
I know a lot of brewery owners, restaurant owners also want this in Ontario, where we want responsible customers. We don't want some guy coming in too drunk. Coming to a craft brewery, it's not, one, it's not cheap to get drunk, but two, it's not the environment.
Yeah.
So
don't be a liability.
Yeah, exactly. So why be a liability? Like, we need you guys to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So as I mentioned, beercations, so I have to add this caveat, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, but once it's safe to travel, so let's say hop on a plane without a mask for multiple hours, or even for as Canadians being able to drive to the US again or whatever, a beercation you've never been on individually or together that you'd love to go on?
I've never done BC. Chris did Vancouver, went to the Canadian Brewing Awards a few years, or I guess 5 or 6 years
like
ago
4
now.
years ago now, yeah.
I've never been out west, so I would love to go out west and just explore all the breweries out there. Even cross the border at the same trip and go down to Seattle. That would be the dream trip for me, for sure.
Kind of entire West Coast all the way down to California type of thing?
I mean, if I had the time and less kids, maybe. But now I see it more as like a week-long trip where I can do both. And my wife and I do Blue Jay before the pandemic, would go see the Blue Jays play in different stadiums, trying to go to as many as we could. So we had just recently done Boston, and that was incredible. So if I hadn't already done it, that probably would have been my go-to spot. But for me,
BC was fun. Got to party a little bit in Parallel 49's Barrel House, so that was pretty awesome. But BC was definitely a good destination. For me, it would be I'd really love to go to Germany and Belgium and check it and just tour. You know what I mean? Just go check out a lot of the old traditional breweries. Hopefully talk to some of the brewmasters and get some pointers and tips from, old world brewers, and just shoot the shit with them. Just have just figure out what it is that, what are you guys doing? Like, how do you do it? And let me take that back to Canada.
Yeah, I know as us as a show, I've always said, like, one of us wins the Lotto Max or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll start in England and just work our way
Right?
through
Yeah, for
Europe,
sure.
so
Yeah,
definitely.
It's,
Absolutely.
That's kind of the penultimate, as I like to say, or I haven't seen it yet. I know there's an American version, but just driving across Canada, start in St. John's and work your way across Canada for all the breweries.
That'd be so awesome.
yeah,
Work your way back. And
I've started working on my pilot's license, and it, might not come to fruition for another year or two or whatever, but I would love to just start flying out to different breweries and just having chats with them, fly back. That would be cool.
that sounds super
It's
awesome.
on the list.
Yeah. It's, I mean, with the last, 18 months with the pandemic, a lot of, like, somebody like myself, I'm not spending money on gas driving to the offices. I'm not doing this. My insurance is cheaper. So it's like, when I'm able to travel again, I can actually do it.
Yeah.
And
for
so
sure.
And do it for real.
I'm looking
yeah.
forward to it. Even if it's just,
You won't take it for granted anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
It's like we used to just travel whenever we needed to travel, and now it's been like 2+ years since I've traveled, and I will never, I'm going to really put a lot of thought into where I'm traveling in the future.
I never thought I would desperately miss
No, I'm good.
Vermont before, but oh my God, I want to go back to Vermont so bad. Even it's
me
just like
too.
Stowe to start, and there's it's called the Von Trapp Family Brewery.
Okay,
and
yeah,
it's
I've heard
also
of that.
an Airbnb, or it's also a B&B.
It's actually made by the Von Trapp family, is
Yes.
it not? I've heard of that.
So
That is so
that's,
awesome. Sound of
one of our
Music was a
places.
big thing in my family when I was growing up. My grandmother's favorite movie. So
We were in
when
the
I heard
play.
that, I was like, "That is so cool."
Yeah, so
that
that's
they
one
made a
of
brewery.
as the show, we had so many plans. Even just Plattsburgh is an hour away from us in Montreal. So, and their breweries are up and coming too. So it's like, why?
Yeah,
Why pandemic? Why?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you just not happen?
I
But
know.
as humanity, we were due. It's 100 years. So
That's true. It is
Yeah.
a cycle, and I mean, if you look back in history, it's happening every 50 to 100. 50 years, you've got a small pandemic. 100 years, you've got a big pandemic,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
well, I mean, you
it
guys
happens.
in Toronto had a small SARS epidemic, and
Yeah,
it
for
didn't
sure,
really hit
right?
the rest of Canada, which
affected almost no
I know
one
I've done
that we
this a
knew.
lot today, but
Yeah.
we should be thankful that.
Do you want
that
another
got-
beer?
Well, we're gonna wrap up the show, and
Yeah.
we'll grab a beer after for sure.
sure.
I really appreciate it.
Sorry.
So, as the Manantler brands, when there's less pandemic, what's kind of next for you guys?
I think this is what we've been building here is kind of what's next for us for sure. The new location with the pizza truck, just moved everything to cans, just started selling beer to bottle shops and
LCBO,
maybe,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
potentially LCBO, beer store. I mean, really, we've since we've opened, we've focused on selling beer in our local area for the most part, And I mean, obviously we ventured to some bars and stuff in Toronto and have some licensees here and there scattered, but I think it's, the next big step for us would be getting into an LCBO SKU, plus potentially a beer store SKU, and starting to move our beer across the province.
Hey, if I could buy you guys in Ottawa or Hawkesbury soon, that's better for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This,
definitely.
This is a bit more of a drive than just Hawkesbury.
for sure,
so-
Yeah, we're working
and-
on it. We're working on it.
That's where I get real bad. Is it's like, oh, I'm gonna early pandemic. I'm like, oh, I'll go to Hawkesbury real quick because I know the LCB is still open. It's like $300, $400 on craft Ontario beer, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm set for a while.
Now you gotta find
and then
a
you don't
fridge.
realize because you're just sitting at home. And I started a Thursday night, like try 4 pints to myself, and I'm like, I'm getting too drunk on Thursday nights for a 42-year-old. Maybe I gotta calm
And
that
not
down,
going
so.
through beer quick enough, so
Yeah.
it's like a real conundrum.
Yeah, it's a complicated life I live sometimes. Just sitting in my entertainment room, drinking beers.
You got
and
some decent fridge space
combining
for that?
things. So yeah, can't complain.
But yeah,
Awesome,
this is the new venture for sure.
awesome, and definitely guys should check you out. Speaking of which, let the audience know where they can find you.
Yeah, we're on all the social media platforms, just at Manantler, and then on Facebook, Manantler Craft Brewery. And then
Location, if people are in the area, where they can find.
We are now 160 Baseline Road East in Bowmanville, Ontario, and then our website's www.manantler.com.
So all that's going to be in the show notes. At All Beer Inside on all social media, and as I say at the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.